America's Got Talent Season 8 singer-songwriter Skylar Hicks has been found dead at only 23 years old. In this video, I'll share all the information that we have right now about her tragic.
Talented doctor who they say is gone too soon.
America's Got Talent died from an overdose earlier this week.
For years, America's Got Talent has been the stage where dreams turn into unforgettable moments. But behind the cheers and golden buzzers, some of its brightest stars faced endings no one expected. Their journeys were filled with talent, hope, and stories that touched millions, until life suddenly changed. From singers who moved judges to tears to young performers with a future ahead. Their stories remind us how fragile everything can be. Here are 10 beloved America's Got Talent members who tragically passed away. Skylar Hicks. Some performers step onto America's Got Talent stage carrying more than just a song. They carry their hearts, their pain, and their stories. Skylar Hicks was one of them. Born on August 14, 1998, in South Carolina, Skylar discovered songwriting as a way to cope with grief after the sudden passing of her father.
Couldn't sleep at night.
Music became her diary, her therapy, and her bridge to the man she missed so dearly. At just 14 years old, Skylar auditioned for Season 8 of America's Got Talent. With her guitar in hand and her voice trembling with emotion, she performed an original song she had written for her father. It wasn't a polished pop number or a flashy performance. It was raw, real, and full of love. The judges were moved by her honesty, giving her 4 yeses and sending her forward in the competition. For a moment, this young girl from South Carolina had turned personal heartbreak into something universally beautiful. She clicked right away with fans. Viewers couldn't see her as a contestant only, but also as a teenager who turned unimaginable pain into art. Skylar became a living proof of how even the smallest could carry wisdom and courage far beyond their years. But things were much more complicated than that. The years after her appearance have been spent by Skylar battling mental health issues. A missing report has surfaced about her, leaving behind family and friends worried yet again. The weight was heavy for the girl despite her talent and early fame. It was worth keeping in mind that the bright smile she once sported on stage covered battles that few really understood. Through it all, Skylar never stopped creating. She continued penning songs with the hope of healing for herself and for those who might listen to her music. But tragedy struck in December 2021. Skylar Hicks, only 23 years of age, was discovered dead at a friend's house in South Carolina. A possible overdose was cited as the cause. On that much-anticipated journey from first-time audition to an overcome contestant, fans felt much heartache. To most, her story serves as an even more sobering reminder. One does not know what struggles someone faces within the portal of his or her house. Skylar Hicks died too soon, but the memory of her courage with her song lives on. Hold on, because the next journey takes pain and turns it into something unforgettable. Nolan Neal. Some singers carry stories in their voices, stories of struggle, hope, and survival. Nolan Neal was one of those singers. Born on October 5th, 1980, in Nashville, Tennessee, music wasn't just a career for him, it was a lifeline. His voice, rich and emotional, carried the weight of a life filled with heartbreak and resilience. Nolan's early life was marked by tragedy. As a young boy, he experienced the devastating loss of his father, a pain that never truly left him. Music became his way of coping, a means of turning grief into something beautiful. By his 20s, Nolan was writing, performing, and chasing his dream in the heart of country music. He released albums, toured with a rock band, and even wrote songs for other artists. On the surface, he was living the dream. But behind closed doors, Nolan was fighting a much darker battle: addiction. Substances and alcohol crept into his life, pulling him further from the peace he longed for. He was open about his struggles, admitting that there were times he hit rock bottom. Yet even in his lowest moments, he never let go of music. He wrote songs that spoke of loss, recovery, and hope, connecting deeply with anyone who had ever felt broken. When it came down to auditioning for America's Got Talent in 2020, Nolan did not simply sing. He told his story with guitar in hand, performing an original song called Lost, written during a period of sobriety. His performance was defined as raw and vulnerable, and gave judges visible tears as they offered 4 yeses and accolades for his courage to lay his truth bare in front of millions. For him, AGT was not just another stage. Its grand storytelling opportunity had miracles in its place. It would instill in the world that healing is possible even without the years of struggle. But the shadows he fought for so long don't easily let go. On July 18, 2022, he was found dead in his apartment in Nashville. The cause later discovered to be an accidental overdose. He was only 41. His death shocked fans and left those behind devastated, who knew just how hard he had fought to stay alive. To Simon Cowell, it was exceedingly painful news, the same sentiment echoed by millions of fans. Nolan Neal will forever be remembered, not just for his contributions to music, but for the courage to speak openly about the challenges in his life. Brandon Rogers. Brandon Rogers was the kind of person who made you feel at ease the moment you met him. With a gentle smile and a voice filled with warmth, he had 2 gifts that rarely come together. He could heal with both his hands and his heart. Born in Portsmouth, Virginia, Brandon grew up in a close-knit family where compassion was taught as much as discipline. That compassion became the cornerstone of his life. When Brandon was just 6 years old, his mother suffered a terrible accident. Paramedics rushed to the house, but young Brandon noticed something that stayed with him forever. They weren't kind. They treated his mother as just another case, not a person in pain. Even though she recovered, Brandon carried the memory of that moment. He promised himself that one day he would become the kind of doctor who truly cared about people, who would never let a patient feel ignored or unseen. And that's exactly what he did. Brandon studied tirelessly and earned his medical degree from the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. He became a family doctor, working long hours, checking on patients, and making sure every person he treated felt valued. But medicine wasn't his only gift. In the rare hours between hospital shifts, Brandon turned to his other passion, music. Singing was more than a hobby. It was a way to express the love and empathy he carried inside. One night, he recorded his own rendition of the song On Bended Knee by Boys II Men and posted it on the internet for no real reason. But the internet had other purposes. The short and sweet video went viral, shared thousands of times, until it finally reached the ears of America's Got Talent producers who called him to audition. Brandon walked onto the AGT stage in March 2017 and stood out for his rendition of Stevie Wonder's Ribbon in the Sky. His voice was at once soulful and tender, strong yet powerful. And when he was finally finished, the whole audience stood up. All 4 of the judges would give him a yes. A new chapter, it appeared, or at least the beginning of one, would start in what seemed to be his life, with a chance he would share his gift with the entire world. Tragedy was conceived just weeks prior to his slated audition. June 11, 2017, Brandon succumbed to a car accident. He died at the tender age of 29. The journey ended too soon, yet his legacy continues. The hospital where he trained opened a learning center in his honor. For his patients, colleagues, and all who heard him sing, Brandon Rogers will forever stay in memory as something other than a contestant. Emily Gold. Some dreams shine brightest in youth, when the future feels wide open and every possibility lies ahead. For Emily Gold, a 17-year-old high school senior from California, that dream was dance. Full of life and energy, she wasn't just a performer. She was a leader, a motivator, and the heartbeat of her school's varsity dance team. Her friends and teachers described her as someone who lit up every room she walked into, someone who was always willing to help others before herself. Emily's love for dance began early, and by high school, it had grown into a defining part of her life. She didn't just move to the rhythm of the music. She poured herself into every performance, blending athleticism with artistry. For Emily, dance was more than choreography. It was expression, freedom, and joy. When her school's dance team was given the chance to audition for America's Got Talent, it felt like the culmination of everything she had worked for. This wasn't just a performance, it was a dream come true. With her teammates by her side, Emily stepped onto the AGT stage with confidence and a glowing smile. She embodied the spirit of someone who believed in teamwork, determination, and sharing art with the world. But while she appeared joyful under the spotlight, she was quietly carrying a heavy weight that few could see. Just like every typical teenager, Emily felt the pressure of trying to balance her academics, extracurricular activities, and personal expectations. Perpetual stress for perfection, always being the one to lead, to achieve, to influence silently, took a toll on her. Behind all the laughter and immaculate routines, Emily was choking under an all-engulfing pressure to be everything for everybody. Tragedy struck on September 13, 2024. Emily died by taking her own life, leaving her friends and family and the AGT community in shock. The horrible news was met with disbelief. How could someone so full of light be suffering so deeply in silence? Her death became a painful reminder of the battles thousands of other adolescents fight secretly and silently. Emily, being the captain of the school's dance team, always inspired and guided her fellow dancers. They honored her memory the only way they knew how, through dancing. Since then, every performance is dedicated to Emily, keeping her bright spirit alive in her favorite place. To remember Emily Gold not only as a remarkable dancer, but also as a lovely spirit who motivated others through her passion and leadership. Although her life ended far too soon, her legacy continues with every step that her team takes in remembrance of her. Bernie Barker. Season 1 of America's Got Talent introduced viewers to a contestant who was impossible to forget, Bernie Barker. At 65 years old, Bernie stepped onto the AGT stage not as a singer, magician, or dancer, but as a stripper. On paper, it sounded like a novelty act designed only for laughs. But Bernie's story carried much more weight than that. It was about courage, identity, and breaking barriers at an age when most people would have long since faded into the background. Bernie lived a life that balanced both intellect and showmanship. Before audiences ever saw him perform, he had built a respectable career as a nuclear engineer, specializing in radiation protection. His sharp mind and scientific training were a far cry from the glitzy lights of a stage. But Bernie was a man of dual identities, one rooted in science and stability, the other in performance and expression. That balance gave him the confidence to step into a role many would never dare attempt at his age. According to the AGT history line, it is supposed that an old guy called Bernie accepted the identity of the oldest man stripper. In episode 101, Bernie Barker performed a striptease to Ricky Martin's She Bangs. The act brought along amazement, but it surely tried to amuse some people. Piers Morgan and Brandy Norwood were unable to resist themselves once they saw the entire spiel. He would later have said yes, thus sending Bernie through the semifinals after seeing the votes with David Hasselhoff. That award is mighty, not to mention considering that his act was completely unconventional for one competing at a contest full of much more classical talent. Unfortunately, his AGT career came to a crashing halt. In week 1 of the semifinals, 5 contestants were eliminated by judges despite having performed less than any other participant. Nevertheless, his act left a legacy. To be able to present one's before an audience, literally exposing his body and brazen heart, taking a challenge to the ideals of aging, masculinity, and identity as an entertainer, is reserved for very few people. Sadly, life after AGT was short for Bernie. On March 21, 2007, barely a year after appearing on television, at age 66, he finally succumbed to prostate cancer. His death was an early example of AGT contestants whose lives sometimes fulfilled the definition of high and low, about audiences seeing it on screen. Bernie Barker is memorable, not only for how he died, but for what he stood for. He avowedly stood as an older performer in a society where age is frequently disregarded. His story illustrated that true bravery on stage does not necessarily mean belting out the highest note. It may be showing up as you are, no matter what. Keep watching, because the journey ahead takes a powerful turn. Lis Anyas. Among the contestants who ever graced America's Got Talent, few left as haunting an impression as Lis Anyas. Known for her commanding operatic voice and soulful performances, Lis wasn't just a singer. She was a storyteller whose life carried both triumph and heartbreak. Born Claire Frances Marie Peterson in Reno, Nevada, Lis grew up surrounded by music. Her mother, Diane Pedersen, was a principal singer in MGM's grand stage show, Hello Hollywood Hello, and it was through her that Liz first learned the power of performance. Music wasn't just a hobby in her household, it was a legacy. As a young girl, Liz discovered her own gift almost by accident. Using a tape recorder in her basement, she would sing privately and play the recordings back, slowly realizing that her voice carried a unique richness. By high school, her hidden passion began to surface, and she was chosen to sing the national anthem at basketball games, an early glimpse of the stage presence she would later bring to millions on television. Liz pursued music after graduation, studying classical guitar and eventually turning toward opera. But her journey wasn't without devastating loss. Her fiancé tragically died in a car accident in the U.S. Virgin Islands, a moment that shattered her world. Overcome with grief, she abandoned her musical pursuits for 2 years, drifting through odd jobs while she struggled to heal. For a time, she thought her voice had been silenced forever. Yet, it was that same grief that ultimately pushed her back to music, as she realized that giving up her art meant giving up a part of herself. When Liz auditioned for the 6th season of America's Got Talent by singing Ave Maria, she made it through to the next round with her performance. The quarterfinals were carried by her powerful vocals with Habanera, which got her to the semifinals with a daring operatic rendition of Evanescence's Bring Me to Life, and to the finals with the emotionally charged Dream On. So powerful were her performances that they dazzled the audience as they showed her ability to marry classical technique with raw emotion. While she did not win, her presence on AGT was unforgettable. In post-show life, Liz pursued multiple acts of creativity, even taking on film as a mermaid wedding singer in Bad Fish. But tragedy would come back. On February 8, 2024, Liz Añez passed away, leaving a legacy of resilience and artistry in her wake. One of the rediscoveries and perseverance for the sake of rediscovery, her story reminds us that even in losing, the voice can still rise with courage. For all of the fans, her performances are still a testament to how music can convey beauty and pain so much that long after the singer is gone, those echoes remain. Jackie Evancho. When Jackie Evancho stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage in 2010 as a 10-year-old girl, she stunned the world. Her angelic opera voice seemed to belong to someone far older, and her performances made her one of the most unforgettable child prodigies in Agit history. But behind every young artist are mentors, collaborators, and peers who help guide their journey. And sometimes their losses leave a deep mark. For Jackie, music was never a solo pursuit. From an early age, she worked with coaches, accompanists, and collaborators who helped shape her extraordinary gift. One of her most trusted collaborators, Joseph Evancho, her grandfather and an early influence, played a vital role in encouraging her love for singing. Later, as her career blossomed, she worked alongside talented arrangers and musicians who helped bring her voice to life on world stages. Tragically, some of those who stood beside her didn't get to see her full journey unfold. One such collaborator was the celebrated conductor and vocal coach Bill Riley, who oversaw the musical growth of many young performers, Jackie included. Bill's supportive demeanor and constant dedication to young singers were hallmark traits of this man, who left this earth after a lifetime of service to the music world. His guidance made an indelible mark on Jackie's artistic presence, teaching her how to connect with emotion and presence rather than merely how to sing. His passing was a soft but loud reminder of how backstage, behind-the-scenes people like Raul really matter, whereas the truly great ones, the mentors who rarely take credit for these things, are what shape the performances that find their way into the hearts of millions. Jackie has frequently mentioned the value of family and mentors in her life. For someone who became famous so young, that support system from collaborators was crucial in keeping her grounded. Losing those figures, especially the ones who believed in her long before the world did, was a painful reminder of how fragile and fleeting even the most inspiring journeys can be. While Jackie Evancho's name will always be associated with AGT, her partners, mentors, and contemporaries deserve their own recognition. They have been a part of her life, and that has meant too much. Although they have never been on stage, but they will continue to live in every note Jackie sang, every round of applause she received, and every young artist inspired by her story. Remind you that behind every bright star lies a multitude of little misses, all too often extinguished well prematurely, but leaving their brilliance behind. Jackie goes on with her career with the inherited knowledge from the ones who helped her rise. Hallowed ground she stands on every time she opens her mouth to honor them. Neal Boyd. Some winners of America's Got Talent fade into memory, but Neal Boyd's story still resonates, not only because of his incredible voice, but because of the obstacles he overcame to share it with the world. Born on November 18, 1975 in Sikeston, Missouri, Neal grew up in a modest household where money was tight, but dreams were endless. His mother, a single parent, worked tirelessly to support him and his brother. From a young age, Neal fell in love with music, but unlike most kids in his neighborhood, he wasn't drawn to pop or rock. He was drawn to opera. Inspired by the legendary voices of Luciano Pavarotti and Placido Domingo, Neal began to imitate their soaring vocals. His friends might not have understood his passion, but Neal knew he had found his calling. He studied hard and pursued a career in music at the University of Missouri and Southeast Missouri State University. His huge tenor voice opened doors to a future that had seemed closed to him long ago. Life, however, was never going to be easy. He worked odd jobs, sometimes taught school, and always struggled with finances, but kept his dream of performing alive. He had auditioned for Season 3 of America's Got Talent in 2008, nervously standing on stage while singing Nessun Dorma, the very aria that had inspired him all those years ago. The audience erupted with applause, and the judges watched in astonishment. Time and again, Neal's performances provided testimony to his heart and talent. He was not just singing notes, he was telling stories of his life through music. At the end of this season, Neal Boyd was announced as the winner and bagged along $1 million and the headlining show in Las Vegas. Beyond AGT, Neal launched his freshman album called My American Dream back in 2009. He has since gotten into singing in high-profile events, such as for President Barack Obama, political activism, and even at some point in time, running for office in Missouri. Neal remained ever so devoted to the ground, while he succeeded in giving all credit to his mother for the sacrifice and support. Indeed, life was robbed away from Neal by misfortune. He died on June 10th of the year 2018, at the tender age of 42, following heart failure, aggravated by complications from kidney problems and liver disease. It took a heavy toll on the fans because it was a complete surprise, especially to those who were watching an underdog go through life's story on national television. The legacy that Neal Boyd will endow will take more than a crown. It will be laden with the allegorical idea that no dream is too big, no past too humble, and no obstacle insurmountable. It is indeed not only about opera, but about hope, hard work, perseverance, and most especially proving that passion can take one further than anyone would believe possible. Christina Grimmie. Some artists leave such a deep impression that their legacy extends far beyond the show they competed on. Christina Grimmie was one of those rare talents. Though she rose to fame on The Voice, her journey and tragic story touched fans across every singing competition, including America's Got Talent. For many AGT viewers, Christina became a symbol of how music can both inspire and unite, and her loss was felt deeply across the talent show community. Born on March 12, 1994 in Marlton, New Jersey, Christina grew up with a passion for music. She started by posting covers on YouTube, where her powerful voice and humble personality quickly earned her millions of followers. She wasn't chasing stardom. She simply loved to sing. Her natural authenticity made fans feel like they knew her personally, like a friend rather than a distant celebrity. In 2014, Christina auditioned for Season 6 of The Voice and instantly stunned the coaches with her rendition of Wrecking Ball. All four turned their chairs, but she chose to join Team Adam Levine. Week after week, Christina captivated audiences with her fearless performances, eventually finishing in third place. Though she didn't win the trophy, she walked away with something more important: the love and admiration of millions around the world. A reclusive and private person off the stage who goes by the name Christina knew how humble she was in her. Never after any concert did she miss meeting every fan present, however long it would take. Her perspective on music was that it would not be measured in fame, but rather in connection with people. Tragically, a very sacrifice became the precursor to the timely tragedy that followed. On the evening of June 10, 2016, Christina signed autographs and greeted fans after her performance in Orlando, Florida. A crazed individual shot her dead. She was only 22 years old. The news shook everybody to the core, including her fans and an entire generation of people who had grown up watching her videos online. Although Christina competed never but was very much part of the AGT family. She stood as a testimony that talent competitions for AGT opened doors to share music around the world, both for the contestants and for the fans. The Christina Grimmie Foundation strictly advances the legacy and does this as it benefits gun victims and breast cancer families. Christina Grimmie may have become a beacon of light who passed away far too soon because of her voice. However, her message of the true kindness and love that flows through her life will continue to resonate wherever she goes, reminding everyone that some of the most enduring legacies are not based on what one does, but rather on how one makes another feel. Her journey may have ended too soon, but the last performer's battle will make you see strength in a whole new light. Nightbird, Jane Marchevsky. Some voices don't just sing, they linger, echoing long after the music has stopped. For America's Got Talent fans, Jane Marchevsky, better known as Nightbird, was one of those voices. She wasn't just a singer, she was a poet, a dreamer, and a fighter who reminded the world that hope shines brightest in the darkest nights. Jane was born on December 29, 1990, in Zanesville, Ohio. From an early age, she gravitated toward music and songwriting, using words and melodies to process her feelings. But Jane's art wasn't about fame. She wanted to create something that would outlast pain, something that could speak directly to the human heart. Life took a turn for her in 2017, with a diagnosis that would change everything for her breast cancer treatment, fighting it bravely. And for a while, it appeared she was winning, but the cancer returned in 2019. By 2021, it was already in her lungs, liver, and spine, with doctors giving her only a 2% chance of survival. Most people would take that as a death sentence, but for Jane, it was a summons to live with even greater courage. The light is now switched on her under AGT. During that particular season 16, she looked much fragile, and to bless it all, her spirit would not let the blow down. With calm assurance, she told the judges she would not only survive but also live. Then she recited her original song, "It's Okay," compiled through years of heartbreak but tainted with resilience and faith, her soft, emotional voice. The room lapsed into silence after the performance, only for Simon Cowell, the one most infamously known to be tough, to press the golden buzzer. Confetti fell as an introduction to a woman who could give just about every reason not to go on with life, and yet chose joy. Her audition went viral, with 1 million views. You cannot wait until life is no longer hard for you to decide to be happy, was the message of Jane, which resonated loudly on social media as a lifeline to many who were facing their own battles. But as the lights dimmed, the health of Jane kept dimming. It did dim forever on February 19, 2022, at the age of 31. The pain of her passing cut deep into the hearts of every fan, every judge, and every contestant. But there was something far greater alive in her story, and that was courage. Nightbird showed the world that there is beauty in brokenness. These stories remind us how quickly life can change and why their legacies still matter today. Which of these journeys touched you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more powerful stories, and click the next video on your screen to keep watching.